Thank you for Hugh, who's our liturgist, for Sam on sound video, and guitar, and everything else in between, for our ushers and greeters, everyone that makes up what First Presbyterian is here each and every, not only on Sundays, but each and every day. We are most thankful and appreciative, and I'm most appreciative to be here back with you this Sunday morning here. So thank you again. I'd like for us to be reflecting on the themes of fear and faith today. The book of Proverbs in the Bible, chapter 9, says this about fear. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. The theme of fear is actually pretty common within our biblical texts. A quick word search would result in over 200 uses of the word afraid, along with numerous references to being fearful and even terrified, which we heard earlier this morning. There are several stories that capture the human response of fear when within the presence of the divine. Beginning with the Garden of Eden itself, the creation story tells us that the man was struck with fear upon encountering God. I wonder if there's something about the bigness and majesty, the mystery of God that leaves us feeling vulnerable and unsure when experiencing the holy in our lives. And I wonder, as the proverb states, if the fear of God really is the beginning of wisdom and ultimately of faith in our lives. Do you remember learning to ride a bike? It's admittedly been a few years for me, but I remember having quite a few reservations about leaving my training wheels behind. To put it bluntly, I was afraid. My brothers and my friends on the streets were naturals. I, on the other hand, was more of a cautious personality growing up. I was content instead to ride those big wheels, where I was lower to the ground and more stable. And I rebuked anyone who suggested that my bike would look better without my training wheels. I would have ridden on training wheels all throughout college if I would have come to me. Man, it was pretty impressive to watch my brothers and my friends flying up and down the street, back and forth on those bikes. And there's this critical point when learning to ride a bike, right? We've all gone through it either as children ourselves or as adults teaching children how to ride. Maybe your mom or dad is stabilizing the bike by holding the crossbar in one hand and the back of the seat in the other. They'll jog alongside you little by little, start with a walk, nudging you ever forward as they tell you to start pedaling. And this is all fine and good. We're smiling at this point, right? And then right when we're at this certain level of speed, well, they let go. And it's now up to us to launch ourselves forward. Physics and aerodynamics all playing their part. Slow down too much, and you'll crumple over to one side or another. You go too fast, and you'll certainly ride out of control and eventually wreck into someone's garbage on the side of the street, right? Like a cartoon scene. Play it right, though. And you'll find yourself flying like a bird down the street, joining your friends in all the fun that the newfound freedom of riding a bike entails. Those moments between fear and faith Well, they are critical in our lives, aren't they? I also wonder about those moments where we stop at fear and decide not to move forward. Those times where we decide that the prospect of riding on only two wheels is just too much, and so we make ourselves content with keeping our training wheels on. Those times where we encounter the grandeur of God firsthand, but then we shrink back at the possibilities that come along with it. And I think we're guilty of this as the church as well at times. And it's not really our fault per se. It's more of our nature as human beings, as an institution. Remember when young children, well, they can be remarkably fearless in life. But the older we get as adults, the more risk-averse we become. We seek control. We seek certainty. In a similar way, the larger and older a church becomes, the more systems and structures are put into place to ensure its functionality and survival. All of a sudden, a young, dynamic, fearless church community becomes a safe, conservative institution. A once vibrant missional vision becomes tiresome bureaucracy. Once faithful dreams and hopes for the future are replaced with agendas for self-preservation. It's almost as if we witness people choosing to put the training wheels of life back on at times, even after we've learned how to ride. So today I'd like for us to reflect on this dynamic between fear and faith as we continue in our understanding of who Jesus is and who we are called to be in the eyes of Jesus. And last Sunday we discussed this theme of abundance and compassion. As you remember that story of Jesus feeding the 5,000 plus. And today I'd like for us to reflect on faith in the face of fear. So let's get back to this text once again. We continue again in Matthew's Gospel. The miracles of Jesus along the Sea in Galilee are placed right on top of one another within this narrative by our author. We remember from the last week the account of Jesus feeding these people who came with only loaves of bread and fish. And as one would imagine, such an undertaking would take a lot out of a person, right? No matter how much someone loved serving others or no matter how extroverted Jesus might have been, he needed time to recover, right? So similar to last week's story, our reading today begins by stating how Jesus sought out renewal in God's presence as he went to the mountain to pray. It seems that Jesus was an outdoorsy guy like many of us. And when the time was right, Jesus was ready to return to the boat, it says. And at that point, by the time of the day and with the winds and the weather conditions, the boat had been pushed further out to sea by those winds. And so the next morning, Jesus just says, the heck with waiting for the winds to change. I'll just go walk out there on my own. The disciples, seeing that there was a figure walking on the water in these early morning lights toward them, were understandably scared. Matthew used the word terrified, in fact, to describe their response. And Jesus' response was, take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. And then Peter, bless his heart, pipes up with a rather unusual response, which we can sort of expect from Peter at this point in time. Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water, he says. We all have those Peter personality types in our lives, right? Those people that once they're on the track, once they get just a little bit more excited than all the others in the group, maybe this person in our lives is just a bit more ambitious, a little bit more overzealous. Maybe she always wants to take things to that next level. This is who Peter is also. Now keep in mind, Peter had several options here in this unfolding of events. He could have waited for Jesus to make it to the boat, right? But no, Peter thought to himself, well, there seems to be a ghost approaching us. So he says he's Jesus. How about I test him? By making him have me walk on the water the same way that he is. This is all a bit ridiculous, right? If we think about ourselves in the boat with Peter and the disciples at this point. And we've seen miracles from Jesus at this point before, but this one seems to take the cake. Peter actually walks on water, just like Jesus. But when Peter noticed the strong wind, he became frightened. And beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me!" Jesus scooped him up on the spot. They both had quite a story to tell about that day, didn't they? And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshipped Jesus, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Our initial responses being in the presence of God is typically fear. It's almost a natural response encountering the divine in this world. It's something about the fear, the majesty, the vastness of God, the uncontrollable in our lives. But here's the thing about this message, this story, this encountering of the divine in our lives. Remaining in fear is not formative. As disciples of Jesus, we need to learn to move forward from fear into faith. This is how we learn. This is how we grow. This is how we become more like Jesus, who continued to walk forward in faith throughout his life, even to the cross. And Jesus says time and time again throughout this Gospel of Matthew, do not be afraid. And I wonder if this is what faith is all about for us. It's about acknowledging that we can be afraid in this world for all sorts of very valid reasons, right? When the winds pick up, when the waves begin to crash in our lives, when the world feels completely out of control, our natural responses would be to panic, to shrink, to seek out that safety and certainty of our familiar surroundings. But Jesus is in our lives to calm those winds. He's here to steady that bike for us, to pick us up once we tumble down. He's ready to put us back on that bike, to give us a nudge from time to time as we begin pedaling forward once again. And he's ready to set us free, to allow us to fly down the road, to allow us to experience for ourselves what it's like to live in faith with the God of the universe. This is our good news this morning. Jesus calls us from fear into faithful living. And there will certainly be moments where we will tumble from one side to the other. That's what life is about. We've got some scars to prove it. There will be times when we will ride right into a wall. There will be times where we yearn for the safety and certainty of the good old days when we knew what to expect from life. I wonder, though, how is Jesus calling you forward in faith within your personal life these days? And I think this is what Jesus calls us into as we live into this idea of being church as it is in these times, in these uncertain times. These days filled with fear, these days with winds of change and waves of the unknown. We as a church are called to step forward in faith. What will this look like for First Presbyterian moving forward? Friends, it's not easy. There will be challenges and messy moments and even failures in our lives, but it's in following Jesus on our journey of faith that we can also, we can look back from time to time and just recognize just how far we have come. What we've been able to experience in this world. What we've been able to share in together. We walked on water. Who would have thunk it? And this is what we celebrate and give thanks for today. A God who invites us to walk in faith and who desires to set us free from a fearful world. We give thanks for Jesus who continues to guide us forward in our lives, patiently allowing us to discover the joy of what we call discipleship. And we give thanks for the Spirit, the very breath of God, not only throughout the world, but also within us, leading us out of the boat, ever calling us forward. For this, we give all thanks and praise. Hallelujah. Amen.